Hello, everyone. It's John Galante, president of AE Ventures, and I want to thank you all for joining us today for this quick webcast on optimizing your strategies and tactics for sales. That's what it's all about at Tech Home Builder and the Housing Transformation Summit. And I'm excited to have joining me today Greg Nanigian, who's the owner and operator of Greg Nanigian and Associates, which is a Sandler sales training affiliate that we've been associated with for 10 plus years. I'll dive in a little bit to what I see as the highlights of what Greg does, and he's going to provide a lot of information and also answer your questions along the way. I would just, as a setup, say that picture fell off my wall. That's what happens when you try to put pictures on a brick wall; they fall off. I would just say that I'm personally someone who's very suspicious of sales systems because I think it's both an art and a science, and there isn't a set of really simple concepts to deploy. But I think this system works. I kind of compare it to the triangle offense that Tex Winter developed for the Chicago Bulls. There's structure to it, but there's also a lot of options for improvisation. In terms of the flow this afternoon, we're going to start with a high-level overview of some of the key concepts that Greg and his team teach to companies on the sales front. We're going to take a tour of what I call the hunting grounds, the pain hunting grounds that are particular to Tech Home Builder Summit and Housing Transformation Summit in the builder space. And then we'll talk about a little more tactically about how to deploy some of these concepts at AE Ventures summits. I'll ask for Q&A from you all along the way. If something comes up, what I want you to do is type that into the Q&A box. I will keep an eye open for it. I will try to multitask and stay open to your questions and bring them out. Greg, before I jump in on the key concepts, do you want to talk just a little bit more about yourself and your agency there?
Yeah, sure. So we've been in business since 1987. I bought the franchise from Sandler when I was 11 years old. No, I'm just kidding. But I really have been in business since 1987, and I wasn't 11 years old. And there's several of us here, and we're helping people a lot of times when they first start working with us. They may be experiencing a sales cycle that they fear is much too long, or their closing ratio isn't where they'd like it to be, or they want to install a systematic approach to selling within their organization. So everybody has a system that's effective and everybody's speaking the same language, which makes coaching, mentoring, supervising, and training much easier, not to mention dramatic increases in sales. And we work with all industries, with tangibles, intangibles. It's been a great experience working with AE Ventures. You got a good crowd of people over there that are highly intelligent and are watching out for the clients. They're looking out for the client's best interest because they very much, as my experience, are interested in long-term relationships with people. So Sandler delivers more hours of sales training than any other sales training organization in the world, and we're happy to be part of that as a franchisee. We're doing training all over the world. We have several global accounts. We've been very fortunate in the business here with a lot of happy clients, and I'm looking forward to hopefully working with some of you.
Very good. All right, jumping in, and there's lots of different visuals. Greg's got behind him the Sandler sub, but they've broken down sales into 7 steps. My 2 cents on the highlights here, Greg, and we could be interactive about this, but sure. One of the things I love is that you talk about features, benefits, selling, and that's kind of the norm these days, right? And I attribute it to, with all due respect to marketing, and I'm a marketing person by trade as well. But it, like, when we turn our salespeople into talking brochures, we're not necessarily going to get the best results. So the Sandler system is predicated on identifying need, and need is 9 times out of 10 going to be pain driven. So it's really about there being an emotional core or starting point, more importantly, to the sale, that until you create that emotional connection with a prospect, they aren't going to be listening very hard to all of the logic that's behind your features and benefits. And again, that the source of that want to talk to you more is typically 9 times out of 10 going to be pain and not aspiration. So I think that's a attitudinal and strategic a game changer. And then Greg, some of the other tactical stuff here, you know, you're not going to get to pain unless you establish trust, and some of that is a personal dynamic through bonding and rapport. Some of that can be done informationally to earn the right to source pain from the prospective buyer. And then the ways to, you know, stay in control, hold on to the steering wheel, and get these bite-sized commitments to next steps and more information being disclosed along the way. And I particularly like, and I hope I'm not I know I'm not stealing your thunder, because you could talk about this a lot of different ways, but I really like sourcing the decision-making and process information early in the game as you're doing your discovery and rapport, to get that stuff declared, versus getting all the way to having presented solution and then saying, well, now how are we going to make a decision on this? And all the defenses are up. So those are some of my personal highlights that I've taken away. Why don't you round it out with a little fuller explanation or respond to what I've thrown out there?
It's a lot to digest in the limited amount of time that we have today. You did an excellent job, John. I'm going to boil it down to 2 things I'm asking the gals and the guys to keep in mind as they get in front of these candidates that might be interested in doing business with them. And one of the points that you made very strongly is it's very, very important to uncover pain, but it's a misunderstood concept, which has been very frustrating to me. So that I finally got to the point where I wrote a book on how to uncover pain, and it's behind me. It's called Why People Buy. But let me sort of give you the bottom line, so that you can know when you're actually uncovering pain, right? So I'm going to give you a quick, it's an acronym, right? So the acronym is FUDWACA, and it stands for frustration or frustrated, uncertainty, doubt, worry, anxiety, concern, and the last one on the list here is anger. So in the various meetings that you have and all these different opportunities that you've purchased and AE is providing, one of the things that would be wonderful is that if you could not only gather information from these prospects, but uncover their needs and go deeper into how they feel about those particular problems and challenges that they're running into, to a point where they're sharing that they have some level of frustration or uncertainty, doubt, worry, anxiety, concern, or anger. When you hear those words, it facilitates qualifying and closure. Things happen much faster when somebody starts to have a conversation with you and they're sharing those negative emotions. People buy ways to avoid and overcome pain. If there's no pain, there's no sale. And your ability to be skilled at uncovering that pain and have meaningful conversations in which they share it with you is very, very key to the qualification and closing process. So that's one of the cornerstones of the Sandler selling methodology, and it's served many people very, very well. So as quickly as you can, as efficiently as you can, try to get good at uncovering FUDWACA. And that's only, 7 words that describe pain out of our vocabulary, probably of 85 in the English language. The other concept that I want to, let me just stop right there. John, do you have any comments on what I just said?
Yeah, I think some perspective on it, right? Like which is that we can't get to every item of pain that we necessarily need in a single conversation. So a stepped approach on that where, get to at least, and I'm thinking about our form factors, right? Like if you've got 15 minutes, you're not going to uncover the 5 pain points that you might need to sell a big builder on technology or a digital solution of some sort. But you could get to 1. And 1 can get you to the next meeting that gets you to 3, that gets you to the 5 that you need to sell. So I think that's an important point.
So if you could ask them 0 to 10, how happy, like in my world, if I was talking to a prospect and I said 0 to 10, how happy are you with the number of appointments you're booking right now? If they give me less than a 7, generally they've got FUDWACA. If they're giving me an 8 or 9 or a 10, probably not a lot.
Yeah.
Right? So that little thermometer technique might help you. I mean, they use it at the doctor's office all the time.
Well, I like your, what do you call it? Strip lining? Is that it? Did I get it right?
Strip lining is a form of negative reverse selling. It's acting in a manner that's opposite the way that they expect you to act, right? So for example, if I'm speaking at a networking event and after the networking event, I'm mingling with the audience and somebody comes up to me is in the printing business, I might say to them, "Oh, printing business, everybody needs that stuff. That must be a pretty easy business." And their natural reaction is to say, "Well, it's not that easy. I got a lot of competition." So there's an example of strip lining, which comes from the fishing terminology, actually.
Yeah, no, I love that one. And it's a great one to uncover loose bricks with competitors, right? Somebody's in our space, a lot of times it's about trying to replace an incumbent vendor. And so, oh, you're using XYZ vendor, you must be doing really well, with the tech sell through or the they must really support you in the design and production phase. Oh no, they don't, so I think it's a great technique.
Yeah, it's very disarming to the prospect. It builds credibility because it makes you sound like you're financially secure and you don't need the money, because the amateur is going to say, "Oh, we can do better than them." But the professional is going to say, "Hey, I heard they're very, very good. You must be pretty satisfied with the quality of service they're giving you." Right.
Yeah.
And then see where it goes from there.
That's good.
Another concept that I'm suggesting you all keep in mind is, as best as you can, you want to get an acceptable outcome to wherever possible to any meeting that you might have it where you engage in conversation. The acceptable outcomes are a yes, no, a scheduled next step, or a referral or an introduction. Now, for the purposes of what you're doing with this AE Ventures event, it would be wonderful if you could bring things to a point where they're making a decision on having a meeting with you, taking a phone call with you, scheduling a Zoom call with you, having a drink with you, things of that nature. John, you want to chime in on that? And then I'm going to share with you guys this concept that we have called an upfront contract that helps you facilitate an easy close at the end of the meeting to get a next meeting.
Yeah. Well, I think we have a lot of consensus buying process in this space, right? It's typically not a single decision maker. There are a lot of disciplines that need to weigh in and consider. And so you're trying to win maybe a meeting with a broader audience of influencers and decision makers is a great outcome, and or to be able to do a deep dive with the ambassador or the most influential that you're meeting with, so that you're in a position to get to the broader audience of stakeholders. I think the political mapping thing, I don't know that it's not really like a basic concept, but I think consensus buying, political mapping in terms of who's in front of me, is it an influencer, is it the most influential, is it a decision maker who's more of an economic buyer? I mean, mapping that stuff out and having a sense of that and how to bob and weave through the communication and decision process is probably a really critical skill.
So what you're speaking to, for anybody that hasn't heard of it before, and most people haven't heard of it before, political mapping is obviously one of our training programs. It's the idea of determining who within the organization has authority, as well as who within the organization has influence. And it can be very difficult to get to the person that has both authority and influence. Generally, what you're targeting is a person who's most influential within the organization. They don't have the authority to say yes or no as to whether or not to purchase your products or services, but they certainly have a lot of influence with others within the organization. And what you want to do is determine who is the most influential for your product, your service, and engage with them to uncover their pain, as well as, here's the other key, their personal agenda. So for example, again, I'm going to take it in my world because I think everybody can relate to sales, right? If I had a sales and development officer reach out to me, and long story short, what I found out with this fellow is that his pain was he had been through 2 other training companies that weren't successful at getting his sales team up to par. And secondly, he wanted to become a partner within the organization, and he was not a partner at this point. So having uncovered both of those things, I essentially shared with him how I would propose to help him get rid of the pain, and that would be a feather in his cap. And the likelihood that he would become partner was increased dramatically.
Yeah.
And then he went back, being convinced that I could help him, and he socialized the idea with the person that had authority and influence, and many other stakeholders within the organization that had to basically buy into it as well. So that's what you're trying to do. Find out the most influential person. Now, in some cases, with the people that AE brings in, you are dealing with people that have authority and influence right off the bat.
Yeah.
But still, many of them are going to want to socialize it within the organization because they all know, gee whiz, I've got to get buy-in to make this successful.
Well, look, it's about risk sharing more than anything else, right? Like I heard this once a long time ago. It's like somebody makes a wrong decision in their own personal life about their car, they have to live with a lemon car. But if you make a wrong decision on the B2B side of things, it could be your job, right? So it is big, and you don't necessarily want to carry all of that yourself, even if you are influential, even if you do have a lot of power. So I think it's the norm. Hey, well, do you want to talk just a little bit about early discovery on the budget and decision process? And I don't know that budget is like the big thing, because we're trying to build relationships. Typically on the solution side of things, budgets are important, but for a lot of the product vendors who want to sell through that builder for a long period of time, it's really more about decision process. But getting to that information early in the conversation is really a whole lot easier than waiting until you've spilled the candy on what you're trying to sell to them, because then they freeze up, right?
Yeah, I like to train people to ask, could you be kind enough to share with me how decisions are made around here in your organization? What's your process? What normally happens?
Yeah.
Right. And I might come back to you, well, first of all, I got to be sold. And then the next thing I will do is I'm going to bring it back to a group of people and socialize the idea with them.
Yeah.
And then following that, in all likelihood, the next step would be for you and I to have a Zoom call, or for you to come in and meet with my group.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love asking that question very early on.
And that can be positioned as a convenience, as a customer service thing. It's like, hey, I want to do this the way that you want it done, right? Like who, what, when, how long. The more I understand that, the more efficient our communication is going to be. But you don't get to it if you wait. If you wait, then they are frozen up and they don't want to disclose the decision process, because they know now you're in the mode that you're trying to get to a yes, and they don't want to give that up yet. They don't want to give that power up, right?
Right. But with all of that said, I can't stress enough how important it is to uncover pain, and also what their personal agenda may be, because the more of that information you have, the better equipped you're going to be to really, first of all, understand, do they have enough pain to switch?
Yeah.
And many times, especially with newer technologies, they may not even realize that they have pain. So you might have to do a little bit of an edu-sell with them to show them how your device, product, or service actually eliminates time, effort, and energy that they're investing right now, right?
Yep.
So some of them may not even know they have pain, so they have
Yep.
to be educated on it.
Yep.
Right.
Hey, Greg, maybe I want to take a little tour through this pain hunting ground since we're talking about it, if that's okay. You feel free to be critical on this. This is the substantive stuff, right? It's
Okay.
not going to be about the personal pain points, but it's going to be categories of information that our sponsors might probe around to uncover pain points. Okay, so one of the things, and we're talking about how do we get the buyers, the audience side of things, asking more about this. But one of the things that we've really been pushing on the home technology side of things is for builders to have good process, right? And so to really be organized and strategic and develop an upfront merchandise strategy to think through the marketing and sales issue, was whether that's getting a lift for their community or homes, or the sell through on the options side of things. How do they get this stuff designed and produced in the home with minimum disruption and maximum efficiency? The crazy ant in the basement, as I like to say, which is the kind of the buyer activation, which is how do we onboard them, educate them, and support them so that they have an excellent experience. So this is manufacturers out there, you all spend 80% of your time making the product, designing the product, and there's so much effort that put into that. You want to talk about the product nonstop, but the process supports that go with this idealized process are really critical to the builders as well. It's a place to hunt for pain. A place to hunt for pain is in the comprehensiveness of a builder's technology offer. They may think they've got it all licked with just the electronics and the automation side of things. We all know smart, connected, high performance products exist in multiple subsystems and categories around the house. So a way for them to get them thinking more broadly and understanding that they're missing opportunities room by room. Buyers buy room by rooms. Builders know they can sell a house based on a room. How are they really leveraging technology to enhance what goes on in that room, the activity, the purpose of that room? Another place to hunt for pain. Benefits. So there's products, but then there's benefits, right? And a lot of times these benefits are served up with a multiplicity of products and applications. It's another way to hunt. You want to speak to work from home and productivity. Do you have an offer together? How can we help you put that together? These may not be those emotional triggers, Greg, to get to the personal pain, but they're the more the intellectual hunting ground. My Big 12 surging and emerging applications. So like, are you playing the trends? Are you up to speed with the trends? A place to hunt for pain. Multifamily, we've got the in-unit. We've got healthy home is something we really hit. And again, it's about, do you understand all the different dimensions that go into health and wellness at home? Place to hunt for pain. Maybe it's a place to hunt for gaps in the builder's offers, a lack of ambition. And then just shifting gears to the Housing Transformation Summit, and I hope I'm going quick enough, Greg, but the Make the World a Better Place mission for Housing Transformation Summit is to help builders increase market share. Now, serendipity arrived in 2023, and due to the lack of resale homes available in the market, we've been able to get a much bigger share of the housing dollars here in 2023. That won't last forever. And the reality is we need to help builders get the same sort of positive differentiation for new versus used that we see in the automobile industry. So I'm encouraging the buyers, the builders, to be asking you these questions, which is, how does this product, this innovative on-trend product that you're offering, help me compete with a used house? How is it better? How much is it better? How can you help me communicate that it's better? That's always a really important obligation, because the builder can't do all this storytelling by themselves. You got to help them out on the solution side of things. How are you helping make that buying process easier, smoother, more fun? How are you helping the ownership process be easier, smoother, more fun? Those are places to hunt for pain. And then this is the way to look at the digital solution set. Really, it goes back to, again, full utilization of the technology across kind of this buying and production continuum. So another place to hunt methodically for needs with the buyers at the event. And this is my new deal between the builder and the vendor, right? Because we're always complaining that these builders don't want to do the innovative stuff, that they just want last year's stuff for 25% less. We're working hard for you and the vendor community to get them to lean into innovation, but you have to recognize that there's an obligation on your side if they want them to innovate. And again, it goes beyond that product. It goes to all of these process support areas, which make innovation and trendier products work for builders. So another way of looking at kind of that process continuum and how you can hunt for pain there. I'm done with the hunting grounds tour, Greg.
Excellent. I loved all the visuals.
Do you want to comment on any of it?
No, I think they were excellent just as is. I don't think I have much to add to that. You made all the great points.
Do we have any questions? I don't see any questions in my Q&A thing, and I hope it's because I have it. Maybe it's because I don't have it open the right way, or maybe nobody has a question and we've been talking too much. Any questions out there?
Yeah, I mean, one question I would ask everybody is, what's your biggest concern in participating? What's concerning you the most? John and I want to help you with whatever that might be. If you have one, this is a good time to share it. And chances are, if it's a concern of yours or a fear of yours, other people are experiencing the same thing. So you may be in good company, but in any case, we're here to help you today. Prep up as much as possible.
Well, let's get more tactical about the specific engagement form factors at the event then. Okay, Greg?
Yeah, sure.
So the most popular engagement form factor that we offer is the one-on-one meeting. So this is a 15-minute meeting, Greg. The sponsors are ranking the guest list. They're then assigned a set of meetings based on their buy. Could be 10, could be 15, it could be 45. They're going to get advanced information from us on that company and that individual, and then they're going to that individual will arrive at their exhibit for a 15-minute meeting at a scheduled time. So can you, off the top of your head, think about applying some Sandler principles to that form factor?
Yeah, so I think it would be important to mention a couple of the features and benefits or whatever the technology is that you would like them to buy, but then also share with them a couple of the pains or problems that will help them to eliminate. And then ask them if they're interested in more information. And then whatever they ask you, reverse them. Hey, that's a great question. I get that question a lot. Before I answer, I want to make sure I'm on point with my answer. Why'd you ask me that just now? Can you help me with that? So I want to dig a little deeper and find out the true intent of their question, because underlying that, they may have some pain, and I want to have a meaningful conversation with them about that pain. Am I making any sense, John? I think I'd probably do well to breathe a little life in that.
You are. I mean, what about getting at decision process? Do you think that this is an appropriate moment to get at least a little something uncovered there?
15 minutes is a brief amount of time. I got to tell you, if you're effective enough to uncover one pain, the next step would be to schedule a next conversation. I think it's a little too soon to dig into process.
Yeah.
You get the pain, it facilitates closure. It facilitates the next step.
Yeah.
In 15 minutes, boy, if you could get them to the point, yeah, listen, I got trouble in that area. Sounds like you got something I'm interested in hearing more about.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. How would you like to schedule a Zoom call with me or a next meeting with me? I'll fill you in. I'll field any question you have. Then we can see if it makes sense to take another step after that.
So my
why-
question then is, how do you make that meeting stick?
Well,
So
it
so
goes
you've
back
had
to-
the engagement.
Yeah,
They said, yeah, I'm gonna do it the third week of January, and afternoons on Thursdays are good. Let's schedule it. We know how it goes. So what is the key to making that meeting happen, or what are the keys, do you think?
uncover one pain.
Yeah.
There's a direct relationship between the stick rate, as you might put it, and how much pain you uncover.
Right,
And most people are uncovering a need, but they're not asking, well, how do you feel about that? Well, I'm very frustrated. Now you got Fuddwalker behind me, right?
Yeah.
You want to not only uncover the need, but ask them how they feel about that. Or how concerning is that to you?
in this world of people distracted from distraction by distraction.
Right.
They may forget their pain. How do we remind them of their pain? How do we do that in a way that doesn't feel like we're rubbing their faces?
Yeah, just, I love the idea of sending them an email after the meeting and summarizing the meeting. And in the course of the meeting, you were kind enough to share with me that there's some level of frustration with, right? So you reiterate it and some other things in there as well. And lots of times what happens between the first and second meeting is they've committed to go do something. And so whenever they commit to go do something, it's a good idea to send an email summarizing what they committed to in a very nice way, not in a legalistic way. You don't want to have that tone in there at all,
Right.
but in a nice and friendly way. Am I making any sense?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think the more you get a prospect to do a little bit of work around the sale, the more likely they're actually wanting to get some ROI on the work that they're doing around the sale. So I do think figuring out ways to probe for a little something they might be able to do that wouldn't be offensive, and then reminding them about that sounds like a great appointment stickiness tactic.
Right, and there's more basic things that probably everybody knows, book it in Calendly and have Calendly programmed to send them out reminders and things of that nature.
Right.
I guess everybody knows that, but
yeah,
just in case.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk.
And then another thing you could do, one more suggestion, have your admin call them the day before the appointment. Hey, John, this is Heather calling from Greg Nanijian's office. Just calling to let you know he's looking forward to seeing you tomorrow on Zoom at 3:00. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about boardroom presentations. So this is a little different animal that we really haven't talked about in much depth, because it's group, right? It's not, a lot of the Sandler techniques are one-on-one in their conception. So this form factor, to refresh you on it, is 10 to 12 of our guests who've been formed into a group for the duration of the event. They're led to a series of meetings over the course of the 3 days, and then our sponsor has a 35-minute presentation opportunity with these folks, right? So I'm curious, like, how do you source pain from a group, right? Or are you just modeling pain?
Yeah.
Speak to that.
John, you and I didn't rehearse this, and I hope you don't hate what I'm about to say. So guys, this is a little risky for John and I, for me to go out on a limb here, but this is the way I've trained people to do boardroom type presentations and presentations to selection committees for years, and they come back to me with huge success stories. So I'm a big believer in having handing out index cards to everybody in the room, and have them indicate on that index card the answer to my fill in the blank question. So if I was doing a boardroom presentation in front of a bunch of salespeople, I might say, I could sell, hey, everybody, I'd like you to, I only have a limited amount of time with you today. I have 35 minutes with you today. I want to make sure I do a good job and address points that are important to you. Or I could talk about what's important to me. And I'm sure when I left my mother, she was still around, she'd be very proud of me. But I'd much rather satisfy your needs and your questions. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna hand out index cards to everybody. And I'm gonna give you a fill in the blank question. And if you could be so kind as to write your name on it and complete the sentence, I'm gonna work off your questions. So that by the end of this, you gathered enough information so you can decide if you want to take a next step with me or not. And so my fill in the blank question might be, I could sell more if only I could blankety blank, and I'll just have them fill that in. John, how do you feel about what I just said? Now I get those cards with all that fill in the blank, and I'm working off their agenda and I'm fielding questions, and it's very interactive. It's very interesting, and I'm working on things that are interesting to them.
I think it's a really cool option that we hadn't ever suggested or dreamed of, to be honest with you. I mean, we have, and what I really like about it, Greg, is that we always talk about builders like to do stuff that other builders have done, right? There aren't a lot of builders out there that want to be the pioneers, right? So like if and it goes back to this idea is, you know, what is the risk if, you know, bellwether builder A and B are doing X, Y, and Z. Now I've got like that model out there to follow in the wake of, and we've always suggested do, you know, a case study, et cetera, to kind of get that across. But in a way, this interactively gets across the other builders' issue set and interest, right? So it actually, in a more interactive and less canned way. Now, I think, you know, we got to have, you know, rock star presenters and salespeople who are unafraid of the questions out there. But I am assured, that we have many of those folks, and it's a great opportunity to, you know, riff to storytelling, to address these things in really compelling ways. And I think the fact that you got them on index cards means that you can choose the priority and really answer the ones that you're in the strongest position to answer and give those the most time.
There's another thing you can do too to add to that is you can ask them to make the cards anonymous, not put their names on it necessarily. If they want to, they can. And then when you collect you've got 12 people, and when you collect the 12 cards, you can always add a few cards to it that you created. Am I making any sense?
You're a sly fox, and I like that.
Right, you can slip those in.
Hey, we finally have a Q&A. Jennifer Lynn.
Okay.
I think Jennifer, you're with Studio Chateau, if I'm not mistaken. She loves it. Okay, great idea. And what are there any other reactions out there? I'm talking to a blank screen. It's not happening. I don't know the challenges of technology. I really like that.
Yeah.
What else? Do you have any other riffing on this, on the boardrooms? How about
well, I've got another one. Quick question. Are they allowed to contact the people that they'll be meeting in the boardroom ahead of time?
Yes, and one-on-ones. They have about a week between 7 to 10 days between these assignments and the actual meetings. So
you know, I'd suggest they reach out to the boardroom people, the people that are going to be in the boardroom, and say, hey, look, I only have 35 minutes. I'm going to meet you next week on Tuesday. The reason I'm calling is to find out what would be interesting to you. I don't want to waste your time, and I want to make sure I'm doing a good job. What would you like me to talk about in the boardroom that would be interesting to you? Now they start to tell you what it would be. And as they're telling you what it would be, why did you pick that subject? And you keep probing until you uncover a need, and you go deeper and you actually uncover what their pain is.
Yeah.
They wanted you to talk about a certain something, probably because underneath it, they've got a need, a problem, and FUDWACA.
Right. I think that's one of your real keys, and it's a learned behavior, right? Because not everybody wants to talk about their pain, and not everybody is comfortable getting people to stew in the pain, right? So that, like, the salesperson in you, the traditional conception of the salesperson is they gave you something to work with. Now work with it. Now, now make the connection to your solution. And part of Sandler, part of what you've taught us, Greg, and I like to downplay Sandler as much as I respect it, because I think there is suspicion of these systems, these branded systems. But this idea that I'd like to practice more myself, and I'd like to see our team practice more themselves, is when somebody gives you that bait, you don't go immediately to, I've got the answer for that. You dig deeper and let them speak to that in multiple dimensions, right? And you got to document it. You got to have that in your arsenal for communicating through the fog and the, all the stuff that hit people when they're back at the office. But I think that's a really important technique.
So the idea of calling people ahead of the boardroom is, we call it a pretense call. And it does a couple of things for you. One is it'll help you uncover pain. Two is it'll help you establish some level of bonding and rapport. I mean, it can be tough walking into a room with 12 people that you don't know, and they don't know you and you don't know them.
Yeah.
So you kind of warm up the bonding and rapport ahead of time by making pretense calls.
Yeah,
it's good. It's a very good practice.
Yeah. So we're gonna these are some excerpts from our playbook. I hope everybody is at least glancing through our playbook. We've spent a lot of time trying to refine that. These were some sample agendas for the boardroom presentations. We're going to have a new sample, Greg, that is this ask the questions technique, which I really like.
Using simple index cards.
Yeah, I think, in the simple index card realm, we are always recommending closing next steps, practical next steps. The Sandler is Pareto, right? A purpose, your agenda, their agenda, time, and outcome. And that you can't do that on a one-on-one basis in a 35 meeting with 12 guests in a room, right? But you can collect a survey form at the door, and these can Greg, I'm going to ask you to go to school on this and give us some ideas on how to improve even these generic suggestions.
Well, I'll tell you
on
what
the next steps.
Listen, I just did this yesterday. So I did a training program for 45 people in the insurance industry, and they were for all over the country, and they were affiliated with one particular insurance company, but they're essentially independent owner operator type agencies. And near the end of the workbook, Jim, who's actually helping me on a producer station today. You want to say hi, Jim? He's over there. I don't know if you guys can see him in the other camera. He linked up a QR code with my Calendly link where people could book a Zoom call with me, a 15-minute Zoom call with me. So when I got near the end of my workshop training program, which was sponsored by one individual who was at the top of the pyramid, so to speak, I wanted everybody to have the opportunity to book a 15-minute Zoom call with me to talk a little bit about some of the selling challenges they're coming into and see if it makes sense for us to work together. So they got out, many of them got out their phones, they scanned the QR code, they pressed the yellow link, booked an appointment. So in your handouts, why not have a QR code hooked up to your Calendly link, where at the end of it, hey, ladies and gentlemen, if you'd like more information on this, if you'd like to have a conversation about this, there's a QR code in my handouts. You just bring your phone over like any old QR code over, and you can set a 15-minute Zoom call with me, or whatever length you want.
Yeah.
But there's a concept.
No, I love that idea. I mean, they can put it in their materials. We can advise them to do that on these little forms. That's a great idea.
Yeah. You want
right.
an acceptable outcome is going to be a scheduled next step, or it's acceptable if you find out they don't have any pain and they give you a no. That's fine too. Right.
Yeah. Any other questions out there? Any questions from the A Ventures team? Is the A Ventures team on this call? I hope they are. I know they are. I am going to put up the information slide. Okay. So Greg, thank you. It was very constructive. We're going to incorporate some of your
Pleasure.
suggestions. I really think some nice tips. Everyone, we should have a QR code for Greg there, but we don't. But you've got his email address and
Jim, can you put it in the chat box?
is Greg, what would be like a next step with you if someone was interested in your services? Is it like
Well,
you deep dive with them?
let's walk before we run. Let me help you guys out. Jim's gonna put a link to my calendar up there. Let me just do some help with you to begin with, and then we can decide from there. At this point, you've invested money in A's Ventures services. You're about to make a serious time commitment. I'm just here to help at this point. And we'll just let things evolve naturally from there.
Yeah. Somebody asked if the recording will be sent out or
Jim,
posted.
can you put the link to my calendar up there? Can you just put it in the chat box?
The recording will, we do have a recording and it will be available for on-demand viewing. So, and I'm sure we'll have email reminders on that. I've got Jessica Salisbury's beautiful face and contact information on her. Jess is like our key customer success people for you sponsors. So she has a lot of information and tips for you. We'll be updating our playbooks and such with some of these ideas. But if she doesn't have the answers, she will help you find the answers from other folks on our team or otherwise. We understand we have a different type of event than what your norm is out there. And the ways to play it are not always obvious. And we're here to help the best way we can, right? And it's really about the quality connections between you and our audience and everybody realizing opportunity, right? The builders doing better with technology, with digital transformation, with innovation more generally, multifamily companies too, and you all having a less frustrating process for getting through that maze, right? To yes, and some of it's about sourcing this pain, and some of it's about being clever and identifying the ways that you need to bob and weave, and some of these techniques that aren't necessarily natural, but they get you step by step to a better place. So I hope you all found this useful. Greg, I really appreciate your time.
Great.
And Jess is your point of contact for getting more information and advice from us. Thank you so much. And we'll see you next time.
Take care, everybody.